Well, thank you for coming, and welcome to Ramadan 101. Thank you to Chaplain Gwen and the CAD and staff for having us out here. I'm Chaplain Williams with the CJTF-HOA. With us we have some of our cultural relation teams, and they'll get up and speak about Ramadan here after the next couple of slides. These are our objectives. Slide. So we are in the month of Ramadan. Here in Djibouti, that's a very important thing, as most Muslim countries. It's one of the high holy times in their faith, and we see that in our neighbors, and we see that going out in town, and we see the importance it is in their lives. So it's important for us to get to know more about it, what's important to them, so we can best come alongside, be good partners, be good neighbors, and educate ourselves, and just grow in our knowledge and how to best support, how to, like I said before, how to be good neighbors, and that's the purpose of this. So again, Ramadan is the name of the month, the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. We see a lot of fasting to include water throughout the day during daylight hours, which is broken at night, and that meal is called iftar. There's several reasons why Ramadan is important, most important being the Quran was revealed during this month through the Prophet. We see other things that, the practicing of Ramadan and good deeds being important in charity type work, that being a hallmark of the Islamic faith during this time. Next slide. So this is I like this slide. It's a little convoluted, but this comes from multiple different sources just to get a picture on the world as a whole, on what it looks like in regards to religion. The pink and the red, the darker the color, the more concentrated the population is Roman Catholic. So we see a lot of that in Europe, South America, Central America, parts of Africa, especially south of the Sahel. And then we see the blue is Protestant, also a large majority in Africa, down south, the United States, obviously being a very Protestant country, and little other sprinklings elsewhere for Protestant. The green is Islam, so we see that from across northern Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, into Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, parts of China, into Russia. So when we talk about Ramadan and the importance of it, it's important to a lot of different people. So for us here in the Horn, all of our neighbors practice Islam for the most part. The large majority of them do. So when we're working inside of our AOs, knowing who's around us and what's important to them becomes important. We also see down here Indonesia, also a large Islamic population. The most populous Islamic country actually is, I won't say Indonesia, I could be wrong about that, but so that's just kind of a snapshot of what the world looks like. This comes from a bunch of different sources, to include the Pew Research Center, the World Religion Database, and other places. So it's a conglomerate of data all into one. But so when we think about what's important for Ramadan, we see how large of an area it affects, and it's important to a lot of different people. Islam, part of the Abrahamic traditions. You have Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. A lot of parallel lines, a lot of characters we see in each of the sacred texts are mentioned in other sacred texts. We'll get into that a little later with Mary. Some just highlights for Judaism. Obviously, their Torah is their holy book. For Christianity, it's the Bible. For Islam, it's the Quran. We see the different prophets there. But we all trace back to one ancestor, that being Abraham. And from that, it was where we kind of see our splits. But there's a lot of parallels in between these three, and especially coming from being in the South Carolina National Guard and being a Protestant chaplain, there's a lot of different parallel lines and touch points in between each faith group. And it's great conversation to be had, a lot of stuff to be learned along those lines and where those touch points are. Continue on, we see the different clergy names, rabbis for, we see a lot of priests, ministers, pastors, different names for that, and then for our Islamic neighbors, imams being their clergy, the leaders of the mosque, in the place of worship. So in America, Islam looks kind of like every other faith group. We see a lot of diversity in between. As a Protestant, we see diversity in between different denominations. You'll see diversity on where Islam is practiced inside of America. Just like everywhere else in the world, it looks different here in Djibouti than it would in Indonesia or Pakistan, or name a location. It's just going to look different for cultural reasons, for geographical regions, things like that. We see most Muslims in the United States immigrate to the United States after 2007, is what most studies say. And then we see a rise in like second and third generation in the United States adopting the faith of their parents, and Islam rising that way, and the numbers growing through not only immigration but families growing and natural stuff like that. Slide. So this is kind of a fun slide. This top picture here is at Task Force Wolfhound. So 2 iterations ago here in Djibouti, as one of their ruck marches they did, an Islamic soldier they had there. But Muslim service members can take, they all look the same, obviously. And this graph is from the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding, a 2002 study showing that 10% of Muslims are willing to serve in the United States Armed Forces, which is on par with both Catholic and Protestant. So there's really no change in between faith as in Christianity, Muslim, or Jewish. When it comes to serving, Muslims are just as patriotic as anybody else, and they're willing to serve alongside us and be our brothers and sisters in arms as anyone else. And so that's a good thing, and it shows a very diverse group and an eclectic group that we bring in the United States Armed Forces, and another great reason to learn about Ramadan and what's important to each of them. Again, Islam's somewhat small in America right now, although the numbers are growing. Being from South Carolina, we'll see a lot more Protestants, and then we'll see some more Catholics in our bigger cities like Columbia and Charleston, and then that kind of holds true also in other places. We see a lot of Muslim Americans in places like Chicago, parts of New York, up north like in Minnesota. A lot of immigrants immigrated to like the Dearborn region. And so you see more of them there. And again, Islam looks a little different in each little spot, just from natural geographic reasons and cultural reasons behind that. And then, as stated earlier, 10% express an interest in military service and willing to serve their country. Slide. So while I am not the subject matter expert on Ramadan, we have 2 people here from our cultural relations team that are. We have Ms. Hibo, who has 18 years experience as a French, Somali, and English translator, has a bachelor's in marketing management, and is pursuing a master's in French literature. And we also have Mr. Habib with a master's degree in human communication, and is pursuing his doctorate right now in Paris. They've been on our cultural team for a couple months now, but have been outstanding and have really enhanced us at CJTF-HOA to understand the cultural side of the house and to understand how to best support those around us. So without further ado, I'll give it over to Ms. Hibo.
Hello everyone, good morning. I'm glad to be here to do this Ramadan 101. As chaplain said, my name is Hibo. I have Habib right here, and Mustafa will meet us another time. So, next slide. So Ramadan is part of the 5 pillars of the Muslim. So the Islam is composed of 5 pillars, and we practice those 5 pillars. It's the central core of the Islam religion. Some are a way of life, some are practiced daily, some are practiced annually, like the Hajj. We go to Mecca for the pilgrim, and some are practiced a few times of a lifetime, such as the going to the Hajj and doing the pilgrim. Next slide. So as I said, the practice of Islam, the 5 pillars are composed of the Shahada, first one, which is the fact to the belief that there is only one God and that we testify that Muhammad is his messenger, the Salah, or the prayers that we perform daily, 5 times a day. And then we perform also the Zakat, which is the charity we give away, especially during the time of Ramadan. 2.5% of our wealth is given away for charity. And the fasting comes close up the 5th pillar, which is the month of Ramadan. We fast 30 days from sunset to from sunrise to sunset. Next slide. So in this one, Ramadan, it explains how it goes beyond the physical. It's a spiritual aspect that is attached to the holy month of Ramadan. It has mental benefits and physical benefits. It's just same as the intermittent fasting. It's amazing how professional athletes perform during times of Ramadan when they are actually fasting. But there are reasonable exceptions to Ramadan, and we'll come to that. Next slide. So in this slide, it just shows you the different stage that the body goes through during Ramadan, during the fasting. Approximately 8 hours after your last meal, your body enter into a state of starving, and that's when the nutrients in your gut are being processed, and the absorption of nutrients is basically done from the gut. And then the body starts using the energy, which is the glucose. Gradually, it uses the fat as a source of energy in order for the muscle, and then finally it gets to the muscle. But so that doesn't happen during Ramadan, it's recommended to eat properly and to actually eat the proper foods such as carbohydrate, etc. During the fasting month of Ramadan, a detoxification process occurs, which means all the toxin in your fat, in your body, gets washed away and removed. After a few days of fasting, it says that it's known that these hormone, feel-good hormone, the endorphins, are released in the blood, and you have this sense of mental health that you feel, as well as a well-being. You feel a feeling of well-being generally. Next. In this slide, it shows you mainly the food that is recommended to eat and things not to eat during Ramadan. So I see up there the carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, and food rich in fibers such as dates, whole grain, bread, beans, all that are recommended. It's also recommended to have proper amount of sleep, to have a balanced meal during iftar. Of course, when you're fasting, you're not supposed to eat. It's also recommended to advise to not eat and stay away from simple sugar as they wear you down, and to stay fit, to try to do some workout or maybe like walk, exercise, to not drink any caffeine whatsoever, stimulant drinks like that, because it tends to, it's a diuretic, so you tend to urinate more, and then as a result you get thirstier. So in that picture where you see the egg and that piece of meat, that's the suhoor time. So in Ramadan, we tend to have meal at night after 12 midnight all the way to the morning prayer. You could eat and so that you can replenish your body. The other thing is to also stay away from fast food, such as burgers and things like that. It's also recommended to drink when we break the fast. Two things are recommended, very important: water and dates, as they provide you, it's a source of energy. Dates are a source of energy and they're rich in fiber. Water, of course, it's quench. There's nothing better than quenching your thirst than water. Next slide. In this image, in this slide, it shows you the local dimension, Djiboutian dimension, which is Djibouti was known as the French territory of the Issa and the Afar in between 1896 to 1977. And the independence, we have got our independence in June, 27 June 1977. Our head of government is called Excellency the President Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh. The Prime Minister is Abdulkader Kamel Mohammed. Our population is around 1,120,849. We have 3 ethnic groups. First one being the Somalis, the Issa, about 60% of the population. 25% of the population are Afar. I think that number is a bit wrong. There are more than that, but still. The Arab are like small percentage. They come from, mainly they are from Yemen, but they settled in this country for so long, so they're considered like Arabs, Djiboutian. Next. Here is the Djiboutian map and the different districts. We have 5 districts in total. Aside than the capital, we have Ali Sebieh. That town is about 10 kilometers from the border of Ethiopia. Then we have Arta, which is known for the hiking paths and the beach, hiking sites and beach. Dikil is known after the nomads because it's a point of meeting for the nomads back in the days. Tadjoura is known as the White City because it has white sand beach called the Sable Blanc. And then at last we have Obak, which is considered as the historic city of Djibouti, and the capital was actually Obak back in the days. Next slide. In this image, you see bags of rice probably and dates, and those yellow gallons or 5 liters of oil. It's the project, charity projects that are given to the population for the low-income families and the poor ones. So during Ramadan, we have reduced the government works certain hours for the sake of Ramadan. The other thing is there are sports still, even though people are fasting, they still undertake activities. And then there is a heavy traffic at sundown. You see lots of animation in the city. It's pretty animated, and the reason why it's because people are, likely to buy fruits for the iftar or other type of food. And then especially at sunset, it's a very magical moment because you see this crowd of people rushing to buy food and preparing for the iftar. Next. What happened on base, off base, actually, is that at sunset, as I said, it's a magical moment. People are all rushing to get their portion of food. We have what is quite famous. It's called the sambusa, triangle of meat surrounded by flour, wrapped with flour, with dough, something like that. And then sambusa are fried at the very last minute because people enjoy to eat it warm when they're still warm. The other thing is that you smell charcoals in the air, incense burnt, and then it's a very magical moment. It's a great time where there is like lots of activities. Family donates already made food for the poor ones. Doorstep, they make little food containers ready of meals, and we donate it to the poor. But the other thing is the date has a very important meaning in Islam. Next. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it means in Arabic, may the peace of Allah be upon him, has recommended that, and oh, I think I'm a bit, okay, so we're in this slide. So basically in this slide, this tells us the importance of the dates, how it's high in sugar, how it's full of vitamins, fibers, good source of fibers and protein. It's consumed, of course, during Ramadan and off Ramadan, of course. And then when the body goes through these phases of intermittent fasting, it's always good to start by starting or breaking the fast to eat the dates. And so as I said, the dates has a very big meaning in Islam. As the Prophet has recommended, he recommended that and said as I will quote, when one of you breaks the Ramadan during iftar, let it break with the dates, as for the dates are blessed. And if they don't have, that person don't have dates, then let it use the water. Quench the thirst, and as the water is pure, as we all know, water is pure. So when we start eating, first thing we say is Allahumma inni laka samtu wa bika amantu wa alayka tawakkaltu wa ala rizqika aftart. It means, oh Allah, I fasted for you, I believe in you, and I break my fast with your sustenance. During the month of Ramadan, it's a time of great prayers. We pray a lot. We have these self-disciplines. We dedicate our day to lots of good things, such as reading the Quran, praying, focusing on the faith, and mainly that's what we do. So those are the do's and the don'ts. Things that we're supposed to do during Ramadan and things that we're supposed to stay away. So we're supposed to not eat, of course, stay away from eating. We're supposed to lower our gaze and not really stare at people too much. We're supposed to stay away from arguing, fighting, smoking, spending the time with like useless activities such as games, and spending too much time on the phone or TV. And we also stay away from people don't swear. So it's one of the things that people should not be indulging themselves on. The other thing is we stay away from backbiting. Of course, it's at all time anyway. It's not only during the time of Ramadan. So the do's are prayers, of course, not skipping prayers. The fact that we study and learn more about the religion. The fact that we read verses of the Quran. We do lots of dhikr. Dhikr in Arabic means it's the process where we repeat constantly that God is the great, He's the everlasting, and glory to Him. And we we repent, we focused on all these things. And we also make prayers, not only for our families and for ourselves, but for the entire humanity. That's the time that we seize this opportunity to be as close as God as possible, and to pray for the humanity, for improvement, for peace, for good things to occur, for the blessings of Allah. It's a time that we do lots of charity, because we believe that when God gives you something, it's good to give also to the poor, as we all equal. Next. Here is just a few recommendations, a few things to do. For people that don't do Ramadan, for people that don't share our religion. If you want to, during time of Ramadan, show your support, you start telling people Ramadan Mubarak. That's a good way to greet the person. It's also recommended to watch where you eat, where you drink, not really drinking in front of people, as of course food is temptations and people are thirsty or hungry. If you have to undertake missions on town to schedule those meetings wisely, meaning not really making as if those meetings happens later in the afternoon, as it's time for us to get closer to the breaking of the iftar time, to dress modestly, and of course in Djibouti people tend to invite. Hospitality is big here, so if they invite you during Ramadan and especially during iftar, it's something to accept, likely to accept. So here we're talking about the Ramadan in the Quran. So the Quran has been revealed during the month of Ramadan, which is the 9th month of the months of the calendar, Islamic calendar. The Quran has been descended from the 7th heaven to the 1st heaven. It was given to Muhammad in different stages. This is the part where the practice of Ramadan has been developed. It was more developed during that time when the Prophet received that we consider it as a gift. In Islam, we consider it as a gift. Here, how the date is chosen. That's a very good question. In fact, as Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, as all the months are chosen, it's chosen according to the sighting of the moon. But the other thing is that sometimes it creates confusion in the Islamic countries, because back in the days we were referring more to Saudi Arabia. But nowadays you have many countries that have a lot of percentage of Muslims, and mainly they're Muslim countries. So it's conflicting because we don't know, it's like, do we just go by which country's first moon sighting marks the start of the month of Ramadan? But although it's like that, sometimes we have countries that start one day before the others and end one day after, or something like that. However, this cycle is well worked between the community, Islamic community. And the other thing is that we relocate, meaning there are days that we can relocate. If we miss, for example, one day we can relocate later on after the month of Ramadan ended. We can start doing a catching up with the last time. Here it's very interesting. A lot of people probably might ignore that the Quran mentions Mother Mary. She has given birth to Jesus while being a virgin. She was chosen by Allah among all women. There was a time that she was falsely being accused of infidelity, and the thing is, Allah has dedicated a specific chapter, specific verses in chapter in the Quran. There is a whole surah in the Quran called Maryam in the Quran, and she was the only woman referred, the first woman referred in the Quran. The Quran says that Allah says in the Quran that she was very pious, very modest. She was a believer in her heart. She knew that there was a God, and she knew also that knowing that Allah would exonerate her completely concerning about the stuff that she was accused of, He inspired her to make a vow, and it's been the vow was that if you see anyone, you just don't talk to nobody. The vow is to just make it's a vow of abstinence, basically. Well, she made to the All Merciful, which is Allah, that she would not speak to any human being, and that she would observe self-restraint. So the vow of Mary, the self-restraint and the self-control, is a foreshadow of the month of Ramadan. It's a process that helps you to grow in virtue. Although the fast is mandatory, there are exceptions like children, elderly, people that are sick, women who are breastfeeding, people that have physical illness and mental illness, those whom the fast would endanger themselves or others. All those people don't need to fast.
Thank you, Ms. Hibo, and our CRS team, especially while practicing Ramadan, to come and educate us on Ramadan. If anyone would like to plug into the Islamic community at CLDJ, here's some ways to do it. We have Juma prayers over at the French base every Friday. You can sign up at the chapel, the office behind the chapel, and they will get on the list to give you all the details on how to get there, or how they're going to get you there. We also have April 1st. We'll be having iftar at the cantina, and there'll be a PSA to follow on that and more info coming out. If anyone has any questions about Ramadan, feel free to reach out to their local chaplain, our CRS team, those around you. There's plenty of people who would love to have those conversations and grow in that, and just build our knowledge base on how to be with those around us. And yeah, so thank you for having us again, and hope to see y'all soon.